I thank my special representative for Libya and head of the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, Ms. Stephanie Williams, who accompanied the Libyan parties in this effort. Now, too many people have suffered for too long. Too many men, women and children have died as a result of the conflict. And the agreement was negotiated within the framework of the 5+5 Joint Military Commission, and the talks were facilitated by the United Nations on the basis of Security Council Resolution 2510 and 2542. It is the result of 4 rounds of negotiations held since February of this year. The ceasefire also follows a meeting in the context of the High-Level Week of the General Assembly that I co-chaired with the Foreign Minister of Germany, which helped to galvanize the efforts of the international community. And I want to thank all those countries supporting the mediation in the context of the Berlin process and in meetings organized by neighboring countries of Libya. I appeal to all stakeholders and regional actors to respect the provisions of the ceasefire agreement and ensure its implementation without delay. And I call on the international community to support Libyans in implementing the ceasefire and in bringing an end to the conflict. This includes ensuring the full and unconditional respect for the Security Council arms embargo. And I urge the Libyan parties to maintain the current momentum and show the same determination in reaching a political solution to the conflict, resolving economic issues, and addressing the humanitarian situation. The United Nations Support Mission in Libya is making preparations to resume the Libyan Political Dialogue Forum, which will be preceded by a series of meetings and consultations that would facilitate resumption of inclusive intra-Libyan political talks, Libyan-led and Libyan-owned. There is no military solution for the conflict in Libya. This ceasefire agreement is a critical step, but there is much hard work ahead. And the United Nations will continue to support the Libyan parties in the search for lasting peace in their country. But I also want to stress, in the context of my repeated calls for a global ceasefire so that we can focus all our energies on the COVID-19 pandemic, and with the inspiration of the Libyan agreement, now is the time to mobilize all efforts to support the mediations taking place to end the conflicts in Yemen, Afghanistan, and in Armenia and Azerbaijan, where active hostilities are causing immense suffering for civilians. There is no military solution for any of these conflicts. The solution must be political. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. James Bays, Al Jazeera.
Secretary General, despite the obvious hard work of your acting Special Representative Stephanie Williams, with peace talks ahead, would this not be the right time to have a permanent special envoy? And how frustrated are you that 3 members of the Security Council, South Africa, Niger and St. Vincent and Grenadines, are blocking the appointment of Mr. Mladinov, potentially hindering what could be the best chance of peace for many months?
We are in a constructive dialogue, but let's be clear, this is not the first time that an envoy is blocked in the Security Council, so I don't think we should outline or we should focus on the present difficulties, because there were other difficulties preceding them, and I hope that everything will be overcome in the near future.
Thank you. We'll go to Edie Leder, Associated Press.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. The President of Turkey was less than enthusiastic about this ceasefire agreement. He said that it hadn't been signed off on by the heads of the 2 sides. Are you concerned about this, especially since Turkey is a main backer of the government?
This was signed by the elements of the 5+5. I have the names here. Major General Ahmed Ali Abu Shama, Brigadier General Al-Mukhtar Milad Mohamed Nakassa, Brigadier General Al-Fituri Khalifa Salem, Colonel Mustafa Ali Mohamed Yahya, Colonel Radwan Ibrahim Mohamed Al-Garari, representing the Libyan Army, and representing the Libyan National Army, the General Command, Major General Emraja Emamed Mohamed Al-Amani, Major General Faraj El-Mabrouk Abdul Ghani Al-Sousa, Major General Atiya Awad Mohamed Al-Sharif, Staff Major General Engineer Al-Hadi Hassan Ahmed Al-Falah, and Major General Kairi Khalifa Omar Al-Tamimi. So these were the credited representatives of both sides. And this is a Libyan-led process with a Libyan ceasefire. And I ask all countries that are involved in the conflict to fully support the Libyans in implementing this ceasefire.
Thank you. Ali Barada, Ashrak Al-Awsat, online. Ali?
Mr. Secretary General, I have a follow-up on Libya. You said that this is a fundamental step. What do you expect as a next step starting from here? And please, if you can comment on the situation in Lebanon regarding the formation of the government and the other issues that facing the country. Thank you.
Well, this agreement has a number of detailed decisions that were communicated this morning in Geneva by our acting special representative. And obviously, what is important now is all those aspects are put in place. I'd also like to underline that the parties, and I can read. The parties said, in light of the prevailing positive atmosphere and complete confidence, the 5+5 Joint Military Committee, in conjunction with UNSMIL team, will develop a mechanism to monitor the implementation of this agreement. And the 5+5 Joint Military Committee recommends and urges UNSMIL to forward the ceasefire agreement signed by the JMC to the Security Council to adopt a resolution to ensure compliance and implementation of this agreement by all internal and external parties. So there is a very clear commitment of the parties to themselves implement the agreement and at the same time to ask for the support of the UN in that implementation. But it is a Libyan-led process of implementation and of monitoring. On the other hand, there are important decisions in relation to a joint room, in relation to circulation in roads and air circulation between all areas of Libya, very important decisions in relation to mercenaries leaving the country in the appropriate time framework that is defined, in relation to the future integration of armed groups and militias. I mean, it's a very detailed and very important agreement. Now it's essential that this agreement is implemented. On the other hand, there is another process in parallel that is taking place for the convening of the political dialogue forum. And I hope that this will be a very important step, making the Libyans come together in finding a way to then move forward with the political process, taking into account the necessary establishment of future institutions in the country that will guarantee peace and stability in Libya. And we also are working with the African Union that is preparing, as you know, a meeting a large meeting for reconciliation of different entities in Libya. So there's lots of other steps that will be taking place. What is important is from now on that the ceasefire, the global ceasefire, is agreed by the parties. From now on, what is important is implementation, implementation, implementation.
Alan, RIA Novosti.
Lebanon, please.
Lebanon.
Please,
in relation to Lebanon, I mean, we just express our wish that as quickly as possible a truly inclusive government will be formed in Lebanon, and that it will be possible to mobilize all the efforts for the necessary reforms the country has to do and for the mobilization of the international support that is absolutely essential, because Lebanon is facing a very dramatic combination of crises. Crisis related to the economic situation of the country, prevailing economic situation of the country, crisis in relation to the dramatic event that occurred in the harbor, crisis in relation to the COVID, and I mean so many other aspects that have created a dramatic situation for the people of Lebanon that deserves that those responsible for the political institutions in Lebanon come together with inclusive, participative solutions to address the problems of the country. And I believe that the Lebanese people has the right to expect the international community to express an effective solidarity to allow Lebanon to come out of the difficult situation in which it is.
Alan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. According to the agreements in Geneva, as far as I understood, the Security Council should adopt a resolution endorsing these agreements reached in Geneva. When do you expect such a resolution to be adopted?
That is the appeal made by the parties. I mean, my hope is that this appeal will be heard, and of course we will be conveying the appeal, that the appeal will be heard, and that we will have the full commitment of the Security Council.
All right, one last question. Sherwin Bryce Pease, South African.
Thank you, Stefan, and good to see you, Secretary General. Thank you so much for doing this. My question is on Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday failing to directly mention the fatal shooting of peaceful protesters, calling rather on those peaceful protesters to resist the temptation of being used by some subversive elements to create chaos in the country. Given that you had a conversation with the Nigerian president earlier, a few days ago, are you satisfied with what you heard from the president, given also your strong statement earlier this week?
Now, I think that it is very important to assert two basic principles. One is the right of peaceful demonstration. The other is the need for authorities to show restraint and not to abuse force when dealing with demonstrations. We had dramatic incidents that, of course, were condemned by the whole of the international community. And I had from the President his strong commitment to do everything possible to avoid this kind of incidents, and I hope that it will be the case in the future. I hope also that all those that have grievances to express that are able to do so in a peaceful way in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's the United Nations Secretary General António Guterres delivering the statement then on Libya there. The permanent ceasefire agreement with immediate effect is what that was all about. So some positive news there coming out of the UN. Let's take a short break. Do stay with us here on SA Today.